Hello everyone, good morning. This is Lamiya Rahman. Welcome to my presentation. Now I am going to talk about the legal issues that need to be considered when Canadian firms will expand their business in Australia. First, I am going to give a brief overview of the Australian economy. The Australian economy is one of the largest and most developed economies in the world. Australia has consistently maintained a strong economic performance. As of September 2021, Australia had a GDP of around $1.4 trillion, making it the 14th largest economy globally. The country has experienced continuous economic growth for nearly 3 decades, avoiding recession during that period. For Australia, trade contributes over 40% of Australia's GDP. Australia is a major player in international trade. It has a strong export-oriented economy with key exports including minerals such as iron ore and coal, agricultural products such as beef, wheat and wool, and services such as education and tourism. Major trading partners include China, Japan, the United States, South Korea, and various countries within the European Union. In recent years, foreign direct investment has grown by approximately 7% per year over the last decade and has now topped $1 trillion Australian dollar. Australia attracts investment from around the world. Over the past decade, foreign direct investment from China has risen on average by 12% each year, from Canada by 12%, from Japan by 9%, and from Singapore by 9%. Australia's top three overseas investors are the US, Japan, and the UK, with a stock holding equivalent to 17%, 13%, and 12% of total foreign direct investment respectively. So let's talk about what are the reasons that I have chosen Australia for this presentation of foreign direct investment. Firstly, Canada and Australia are highly similar economies in terms of language, size, wealth, governance system, socio-economic characteristics, resource endowments, and specialization in international trade. Annual bilateral trade between Canada and Australia is around $4 billion, and Canada exports about $2 billion worth of goods to Australia every year. On the investment side, Australia regularly receives more than 40% of Canada's total direct investment into Asia. Australia actively seeks new trading opportunities. Australia has 17 free trade agreements and have led the formation of multiple regional trade agreements in the Asia Pacific. These foreign trade agreements can be an ideal reason for Canadian companies to do business in Australia. By partnering with an Australian firm or by establishing a business operation in the country, Canadians can benefit from Australia's trade agreements when they export from there to its free trade agreement partners. Well, now close integration with dynamic economies in Asia drives wealth creation in Australia. 12 of Australia's top 15 export markets are in the Asia region. They attracted exports worth 472 billion Australian dollar in 2021-22. This represents almost 80% of Australia's total exports of goods and services. Foreign direct investment in Australia is growing fast. The total stock of foreign direct investment in Australia has risen by an average of 8.1% per year since 2001-2. Other forms of foreign investment, including portfolio investment, grew by 8.3% per year on average during the same period. This has taken the level of total foreign investment in Australia to $4.4 trillion. Investment is becoming more important to the Australian economy. As a percentage of GDP, the total value of foreign investment in stock grew from 123% in 2001 to almost 200% in 2021-22. Australian federal and state laws protect consumers, their business and consumers from unfair trading practices. These laws, together with industry codes of practices, help local and foreign business operate fairly and competitively and make sure that customers are properly informed and protected. Let's see what are the main laws that regulate foreign investment in Australia. The first one is the Competition and Consumer Act 2010. The Competition and Consumer Act 2010 is a key legislation in Australia that promotes fair trading, competition and the protection of consumers. It comprises both competition law and consumer protection provisions. The second and third one are the Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Act 1975, which is known as FATA, and the Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Regulation 2015, known as FATR. Together, these give the Australian Treasurer the power to review foreign investment proposals that meet certain criteria and to block such proposals that are contrary to the national interest or national security as applicable, or apply conditions to the way such proposals are implemented to ensure they are not contrary to the national interest or national security as applicable. The next one is a Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Fees Imposition Act 2015 and its associated regulations. These set the fees for the various kinds of applications that may be made. The last one is the Privacy Act 1988 is a primary legislation governing the collection, use and disclosure of personal information by businesses in Australia. It aims to protect individuals' privacy rights and establish guidelines for handling personal data. The Privacy Act underwent significant amendments in 2017 to include mandatory data breach notification requirement. There are certainly a few other separate legislation imposes other requirements in respect of foreign ownership in certain industries, but in this presentation we will not cover those industry-specific requirements. Now we will broadly discuss about the Competition and Consumer Act 2010 and its implication for foreign investors. Let's start. The Competition and Consumer Act 2010 is a national law that regulates fair trading in Australia and governs how all businesses in Australia must deal with their customers, competitors and suppliers. The Act promotes fair trading between competitors while also ensuring that consumers are treated fairly. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission administers and enforces the Act along with the state and territory regulators. The Act broadly covers unfair market practices, industry codes, mergers and acquisition of companies, product safety, collective bargaining, product labeling, price monitoring, and industry regulation, airport, electricity, gas, telecommunication. The role of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission is an independent authority that promotes competition and honesty between businesses and consumers. The ACCC's primary responsibility is to ensure that individual and business comply with Australian competition, fair trading and consumer protection laws administered under the Competition and Consumer Act 2010. Under this Act, the ACC's role is to inform and educate businesses about their responsibilities under the Act when making monetary claim, including providing guidance, raise awareness amongst consumers about their rights under the Act, and investigate and where appropriate take action against business who engage in practices that contravene the Act. The benefit of CCA is maintaining and promoting competition, protecting the interest and safety of consumer and supporting fair trading in market affecting consumer and small business, promoting the economically efficient operation of use of and investment in infrastructure and identifying market failure. The implication of CCA for foreign business. The Competition and Consumer Act 2010 is a significant piece of legislation in Australia that aims to promote fair trading, protect consumer and prevent anti-competitive practices. While the Act primarily focuses on domestic business and consumer, it also has implications for foreign investors operating in Australia. Here are some key points to consider regarding the Competition and Consumer Act for foreign investors. Merger and acquisition reviews. The Act includes provision related to merger and acquisition that may impact foreign investors. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission is responsible for assessing merger and acquisition to ensure they do not substantially lessen competition in the market. Anti-competitive conduct. The Act prohibits anti-competitive conduct such as cartel behavior, abuse of market power, exclusive dealing, and anti-competitive agreement. These provisions apply to both domestic and foreign business operating in Australia. Foreign investors need to be aware of their obligation to avoid engaging in any anti-competitive practice that could breach the Act. Consumer protection. The Competition and Consumer Act also contains provision related to consumer protection, including unfair contract terms, misleading and deceptive conduct. Enforcement and penalties. The ACCC has the authority to investigate and enforce compliance with the Competition and Consumer Act. Exemption and regulations. Some exemptions and regulations exist under the Competition and Consumer Act that may be relevant to foreign investors. For example, there are provisions for joint venture, industry-specific regulation, exemption for certain types of conduct, etc. The Australian government welcomes foreign investment for the significant benefits it provides while recognizing the need to ensure investment are not contrary to the national interest. Foreign investment has helped build Australia's economy and it will continue to enhance the well-being of Australians by supporting economic growth and innovation into the future. The government reviews foreign investment proposals on a case-by-case basis to ensure they are not contrary to the national interest. The Foreign Investment Review Framework is set by the Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Act 1975 and the Foreign Acquisition Takeover Fees Imposition Act 2015. The Act Act requires foreign investors to notify the treasurer of proposed foreign investment that meets certain criteria. The treasurer has the power to prohibit this investment or apply conditions to the way they are implemented to ensure they will not be contrary to the national interest. The overwhelming majority of proposed investments are Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Act 1975 regulates foreign investment and acquisition in Australia. The Foreign Acquisition and Takeover Act 1975 is designed to oversee and regulate foreign investment in Australia to ensure it aligns with the country's national interest. The Act aims to strike a balance between encouraging foreign investment and safeguarding national security, economic stability, and community interest. The Act applies to proposed acquisition of Australian business and assets by foreign person. It covers various types of transaction, including share acquisition, takeover, and significant interest in Australian entities. It also includes provision regarding agricultural land, residential, real estate, and certain sensitive sectors such as defense and media. The Act establishes the Foreign Investment Review Board as a regulatory body responsible for reviewing and approving foreign investment proposals. Foreign investors are generally required to seek approval from FIRB before proceeding with a proposed acquisition or investment. The approval process evaluates factors such as national security, competition, and the likely economic benefits to Australia. FIRB approvals may be subject to specific conditions aimed at protecting national interest or addressing concern. Foreign investors are expected to comply with these conditions and report any changes to their investment arrangements. Non-compliance with the Act or imposed condition can result in penalties, including divestment orders or fines. Here in the last slide, the references are addressed which were used for this presentation. Thank you everyone for your patience. Goodbye.